Welcome and thank you for joining us for our webinar, Reporting Options in R12. Today's speakers are Tracy Bishop and Shannon Krebs. Shannon spent over 15 years with Oracle Corporation, with roles including back-office operations, end-user and consulting training, development, and sales. Shannon is excited to show people how to easily access and leverage these details to understand their organization and make better decisions using an easy-to-use reporting tool from Insight. Tracy Bishop spent 13 years at Oracle as a pre-sales consultant solution architect in eBusiness Suite modules, including financials, projects, advanced procurement, CRM, HR payroll, and GRC. She was one of the first Oracle employees to be trained on Oracle Financials 12. Her deep expertise in Oracle EBS is core to her role in building packaged reports that answer critical business questions. She also defines products based on thorough industry research and an understanding of customer needs. With that, I'll turn it over to you, ladies.
Great, thanks so much, Heather. I appreciate it. What we're going to do now is show you what we're going to be discussing today in about the next half hour or so. So the first thing we're going to cover is Oracle Financials in Release 12. What's new? There have been a lot of changes under the covers with Oracle, so we want to walk through those so you understand exactly what's happened out there. Then we're going to focus on the reporting options that exist in 11i and what has changed in Release 12. Specifically, we're going to go into ADI versus Report Manager, Discoverer, and then show you how Insight for Oracle can really help your users access information. And really that's what this presentation is about, is how you are going to be able to get some information and detailed answers out of this ERP system you've spent so much time and energy focused on implementing.
Okay, so thanks, Shannon. So before we get into the reporting options side of things, let's consider what those changes are that are really making a difference in R12. So if you're in some of the HR or manufacturing areas, there perhaps aren't so many things that are of interest to you, but for the financials users, R12 was a really big architectural change. There are a number of major initiatives which really shook up the underlying architecture and made it quite different. So although your end users might have the same experience when they're entering invoices or processing different transactions or looking at inquiries, although there are some user interface changes, they won't really see that much different. But underneath, there's a lot of change. So I just want to talk you through some of those major changes because they do have an impact on how you report and the sort of data that you'll be able to get out of the system and how you get it out. So first of all, let's have a look. So there were 6 major initiatives really. The first of those was the introduction of the concept of ledger and ledger sets. So you'll know that in 11i there was the concept of sets of books which really govern the chart of accounts, the calendar and the currency. That's still true of ledgers in R12, but they also now govern and hold an accounting method. And that drives something else that we'll come on to in a little while. So there's lots more accounting set up and there's all sorts of different things associated with those ledgers now, such as legal entities and various things that you set up in a single place in the accounting setup manager. You also have the concept of ledger sets, which allows you to do things over groups of ledgers. So where they have commonality in terms of things like the charts of accounts and the calendar and so on, you can actually report over those in one go, or you can do things like open and close periods and various other activities that would make sense to do once. So it's really helping organisations who do have that multi-ledger or multi-set of books set up to be more efficient. The next real change is the use of operating units. And you'll know from 11i again that a single operating unit generally was associated with a single responsibility, which was fine for security, but it also meant that if you were in a shared service environment, or generally you've got users who wanted to access multiple operating units, they had to keep switching responsibility all the time to go to the different areas and look at the different parts of the system. Multi-org access control does exactly what it says on the tin. So it allows you to view data across multiple operating units if your responsibility allows you to do that. It allows you to input transactions for different operating units too. So again, trying to improve efficiency and make things slicker around the system. The third item is probably the biggest change. And in many ways, it could be almost invisible to you. And indeed, we do have quite a lot of customers and people that we're working with at the moment who have done technical upgrades to R12 and are barely aware of the subledger accounting layer that they now have within the system. Now, this does two things. First of all, it's a rules engine. So it now governs all the transaction processing between the subledgers and the general ledger. So it makes a more consistent way of flowing the transactions through and working out where the GL coding should be and so on. It also allows you to do things like post a transaction to multiple ledgers at the same time so that you've got all of that multi-ledger reporting going on if you need that. But the other thing that it does is actually gather a whole repository of data that sits below the general ledger. So this means two things. As part of your upgrade, potentially, you could really clean up your general ledger. You could take out a lot of data and fields and detail that you've had in there traditionally over time. You might even be able to clean up your chart of accounts. Now, if you're doing a technical upgrade, you might not even want to think about that at the moment, but you can still do it after the event if you want to. Subledger accounting is where you can now hold all that detail. It actually allows you to bring a lot more information up from those subledgers and hold it alongside GL coding information in a single layer. And you can also do all sorts of other things like configure how header and line descriptions are populated to show you more information there, how extra fields are populated that you can then accumulate balances on, and all sorts of things. So it could again allow you to get rid of some customizations that you might have put in to the general ledger areas and so on to allow you to do that level of reporting there. Even if you don't do anything with your subledger accounting rules to actually populate things, it's still going to be building up that data layer in the background, and it potentially is going to increase the volume of your financial data by between 40 and 60%. So if you're not going to do anything with it, it's a bit of a shame really that it's sitting there and accumulating and you're not taking advantage of it. So those are the three key ones from my perspective and that will really impact reporting. The other areas are more process-driven really. The tax engine has all been consolidated into a single place rather than being having to set up in different modules. Intercompany has been reworked to make it more efficient and flexible and so on. And the bank model introduces a new payments engine for electronic payments and also brings more information into the trading community architecture. So again, that's more efficient in terms of how you process payments and so on. Onto the reporting side of things. Shannon.
Great. So a lot of people we're talking to now are getting ready to go to Release 12. You're doing it because you're ready to take advantage of some of the new features that exist within Release 12, or you're doing it because you realize you need to based on support limitations and things that are going on. But a really important thing to understand is that it is a significant upgrade. So we've seen quite a few people that initially when Release 12 first came out started by doing complete reimplementations, but now as time has gone by and it's been out since about 2008, we're finding more and more people are just going to a straight upgrade. But even if you are just going to a straight upgrade, all of the things that Tracy just spoke about, things like SLA, are all going to be out there, things you can take advantage of. So just know that it's going to take a lot of time and effort to be able to do so, and that there are a lot of changes that are under the covers that your end users might not necessarily see, but will have an impact on how you're going to go about reporting and accessing information that's out there. What we want to do here is just kind of walk you through the reporting options that existed with 11i, and then we're going to go through and talk about the reporting options and how they've changed in Release 12. So what you can do is you can look at reporting in Oracle at really three basic levels. At the bottom layer here, this is all the standard functionality you get with Oracle applications. So we can kind of walk through it starting in the bottom left. The first are all the standard reports that come with the system. These can be scheduled to run whenever you like. They can be automatically sent to anyone in your organization. The problem with these reports is that they're really often static data with really limited information from what you're going to see, and you can't drill down to any of the details. Also, as Oracle has added new functionality throughout the years, they often haven't created enough reports to keep up with the new features or functions you might be getting. The next idea, or the next reporting tool that exists, is something called RxI reports, and not a lot of people know about these. These were actually developed by the fixed assets team and really a bit of a precursor of fat extracts, which came along in release 12 that Tracy will cover. And the idea here is it really gives you the ability to pull out lots more columns of data to play with. And what people end up doing often is creating a big RXI report, dumping it to Excel, and then kind of picking and choosing the information they want to display or go after. It's a bit of a cross between a standard report and an ad hoc report. And all of these are run using your standard concurrent request engine that exists. In 11i, it's core forms that you go through to access it, and you can still run your requests or request sets to group information together. You also know concurrent requests are often run to kick off processes as well to kind of make things happen in your system. Another good tool out there that exists today in 11i is XML Publisher. And this really lets you make things look pretty. It uses XML templates. And while you don't really need to know how to program in XML, it is useful to understand XML and how to make it work. What happens is there are a lot of nicely presented templates that exist, and you can go through and kind of put in the details you want to have for each report that you're printing out. And this is really more used as a presentation layer. So for example, if you're doing a customer invoice or you're doing a check that might be sent out to somebody, that's where XML Publisher is really useful. We also have Reports Manager, which is a repository and a way of storing your reports and then publishing them to your users. So people use Reports Manager to run reports, put that information out there. Again, those are static reports and available for people to have. They can actually get quite heavy and be out there for quite some time, so require a lot of management and cleanup. Then we also have good old ADI, which is the best friend an accountant can have. It's a good way to publish your reports out. It provides a bit of drill down. It's especially useful with FSGs. So FSGs are the financial statement generators where you have row sets, which kind of help you determine what your hierarchy is going to be, what accounts you want to see. Your column sets, which determine what I'm reporting across, so looking at an actuals or a budget. And then I have things like my content sets, which includes the data and information I want there. Those are used, my FSGs, to create my financial statements, my budget reports, really kind of a way of generating those financial reports I need for statutory reporting. And then there's also Oracle reports, which are really just custom reports that are done by IT. So with that layer, that's everything you're kind of getting out of the box with the system. The next layer up is when we start looking at Discoverer, so either 10G or 11G. In Oracle, this has really been the main ad hoc query tool that goes across the application set. And people usually create these reports. It's usually done by someone in IT, or they're often in some larger organizations or people dedicated with just Discoverer skills. And they will go ahead and create these reports for people to be able to use. And then there's an end-user layer, which really hides some of the complexity for your users and allows them to run reports and kind of pick and choose some criteria. It's really more widely used in sub-ledger transaction areas such as AP or AR when you really have a highly configurable report. With Discoverer, you're always starting from scratch. People will go and pull in information and figure out what the proper tables are to join and how to make that most efficient. And then at the top level here, we have OBIEE, the Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition, and there is content for 11i. These also come in packaged applications, and this is a really kind of nice series of dashboards that have KPIs that help you track the overall state of your business. There are these different functional areas, so you could get a financials or procure to pay or HMRS for this, and they'll really give you a good overview of how your business is doing in each one of these areas. They're great for, again, high level, a little more difficult when you want to drill down and start seeing the details there. And an interesting note, they don't necessarily follow the same release schedule for Oracle, although I believe there's a plan in place for Fusion that they will be on the same schedule that's going on. One of the interesting things, though, is if you look at the very bottom of this page, you'll see the word Excel and some arrows. And what we often find is people, no matter how they're getting information out of the system, they tend to take it all and dump it into Excel just so that they can play with it or pull out the information they need. So what we look at is there are a lot of different ways to create reports in Oracle in 11i, and often what people really need is just a really quick, simple answer. They have to usually run multiple things and dump it out to Excel to find that. So Tracy's going to tell us about release 12.
Thanks, Shannon. Is there a simple tool that you can do it all in R12? Well, no. The more comforting fact, though, is the fact that most of the tools you're familiar with still exist in some shape or form. You'll notice that the one that isn't is ADI, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. But if we just have a look at the rest of this slide here first, you've still got your Oracle Standard Reports and RXI reports. The Oracle Standard Reports have been converted more to the RXI approach in R12, so you will have what are known as fat extracts. So much broader reports with more columns and more variety of data in that you can then tailor using templates in BI Publisher to just pull in the columns that are really useful to you. So that's one of the things that appears in R12. Concurrent Manager is still there, and you can still use it in the normal forms approach, although there is also a self-service HTML version now, although I think most people are avoiding that because it's got more steps. It's a little bit more dumbed down and wizard-driven, so it's a bit slower to actually go through the steps to actually set it up. So most people will stick to the forms approach with that. One of the questions I always get asked whenever I see anybody on asking about R12 is, what's happening with FSGs? Are they still the same? Are they any better? Have they been improved? Well, FSGs are one of the oldest reporting tools that Oracle has. They've been around for absolutely ages. And in essence, there haven't been any real changes to the way that they operate in R12. You still have the row sets, column sets, and content sets that you were familiar with before. You will see as you migrate your FSGs, and there are routines that will actually take them up into R12 without you having to mess about with them too much. You will see that you need the ledger field on some of them, or the ledger set field, as we talked about in that earlier slide. And there are a few little anomalies that you need to look out for, where if you've got rows or columns that have GL segments referenced in them, you can't, it gets a bit confused sometimes when you've got the zeros in there, and you need to make sure that they're populated with a proper 0 to ZZ99 range or something along those lines, so it knows how to make sense of it. So little tweaks around there. The key thing, though, is the fact that ADI is disappearing, and you need to use Report Manager for the publication of any FSGs or anything along those lines, and I'll come on to that in the next slide, as I said. The next layer up, you've still got Discoverer, and there's an end-user layer for R12 as compared to 11i, so you will have the ability to create new reports in Discoverer over your R12 data. You do need to be on 11G. But the thing that you need to bear in mind is that the table structures have changed significantly between 11i and R12, especially in around areas such as payables, anything that uses supplier files and so on. So you will need to rework those reports. It won't happen automatically for you. So you'll need to set aside some time to do that if you're using it for transaction level reporting there. You'll notice another little thing's appeared on this slide too, the Fusion Accounting Hub. And if you've been talking to Oracle, you may have found they're promoting the Fusion Accounting Hub as a new way to report. What they're actually suggesting is that you implement effectively the Fusion GL on top of your e-business suite GL and start to interface the data across and then report using the real-time analytics that sit within that Fusion GL or the Accounting Hub within there. So that might be an option for some people who are considering moving to Fusion in the long term. And then of course you have OBIE sitting up at the top, and again you'll need some rework, but you do have content for R12 there that you can use. But of course we're still finding lots of people using Excel, so that still stays on the bottom of the slide. A little bit more about ADI, and then Shannon's going to talk a little bit more about Discoverer. So ADI, as I said, is going away, or has gone away very much in R12. So you don't have it anymore as your tool for actually publishing things like your FSGs, and it's no longer available if you wanted to actually produce FSGs with the drill down through Excel as you may have used in the past. If you do want to use drill down, you need to be publishing your FSGs and anything else through Report Manager, and then setting up specific Excel templates to allow you to do that drill. ADI, as was in 11i, is replaced by Web ADI for things like journal uploads and budget uploads, so you should be familiar with using it in that area so far, but it's really the Report Manager which comes more into play in R12. So what you need to do if you want to publish reports is format them using BI Publisher and then actually get them out to your users using a report manager. And what it actually gives you is a repository where you can actually store point-in-time reports that users can access, and they can either access them through the repository or they can have them posted directly onto their Oracle menu. You do need to remember, though, that they are point-in-time reports. They have to be run on behalf of users on a regular basis, and those links that are on the Oracle menu replaced with the new reports as soon as they're run. So that does create a bit of a maintenance overhead. And also the repository generally, if you're not clearing it down and getting rid of the old versions of the reports, will just build up lots and lots and lots of different newer versions of all the different reports that people want. So it can get quite huge in terms of a data store there. So you do need to maintain and archive that on a regular basis. So those are just a few pointers around ADI and its replacement report manager. Shannon, just a few more comments on Discoverer?
Sure, that sounds good. The first thing for you to know about is that if you've got your end-user layer in 11i, your reports are not going to automatically upgrade for you in release 12. And that has to do with a lot of the changes that Tracy's been talking through. You know, a few ones to point out are that invoices have been split up. They now are invoice headers and lines to be looked at. So your AP reports will probably all need to be looked at again, especially because there's new functionality like invoice categories that exists. They've brought over purchasing categories from purchasing and allowed those to be added to your AP invoices. So it might be a new type of report you're looking at writing. Suppliers are in the trading community architecture. So again, on your AP side, there really are quite a few changes there. There are also things around subledger accounting that might cause you to create new reports, as well as new tax tables that are out there for you to take a look at. It's worth noting that support for 10G did end in December 2011, so you need to be upgrading to 11G. And you know, I think the latest version is 11.1.1.6 or so, so you'll just want to take a look to see what's going on out there. You know, a good thing to note, though, is that Discoverer is part of the Oracle Lifetime Support Policy, and there is a statement direction available on the Oracle website for you to learn about what's going on, and they have stated it will continue to be supported. But an interesting note is that there's not a lot of R&D going on in the functional area of Discoverer. What they're really focused on is middleware integration. So how can Discover reports really push to OBIEE? So they want to integrate with those interactive dashboards that exist with Oracle Delivers and other kind of spreadsheet add-ins. There's not a lot of new functionality that will be going on to kind of increase functionality within Discoverer. We look at these kinds of requests from people all the time, and people look at reporting as part of their upgrade project or don't look at reporting as part of the upgrade project and think they'll wait to the very end. And one thing that's useful to actually ask yourself is, what do your users really want? What do they want in terms of getting information out of their system, and what are they going to think is going to be different with release 12? And kind of the main bullets we define here are people really want information on demand. So it's a matter of not just having to run a report to get an answer, but just being able sometimes to go to a screen and find what you're looking for. So it's more than just a transaction listing and a static report. It's kind of about having easy and fast access to key information all in one place. And there's a real focus now on independence and ownership. And what I mean by that is it's independent from IT or even from a finance organization that has to answer all of these questions for you. So people would like to be able to own the information themselves and get access to it so they can answer their own questions. So it's really about easy reporting on summary and consolidated balances, being able to drill down to supporting information, and what's really key is getting all the information in real time. And this is critically important when it comes to things like month end, when you're trying to close your books and there might be new journal entries being posted to make adjustment and changes, and people need to be able to view that information and see what the current state of business is without having to run another process or wait for that information to be updated in a reporting tool. Tracy is going to walk us through how things sometimes work in Oracle and how they can work in Insight.
We've talked about the reporting options, and quite often people say, well, surely I should just be able to see the information on my screen. And really, the trouble with a lot of the online inquiries within Oracle, and this gets worse when you get into areas like payables in R12, because you've got more layers of data with those invoice lines introduced. Really, you've got to go navigating down each individual transaction level to actually get to the detail that you want. And you might be either exporting things out to Excel as you go and then trying to bring it together into a single spreadsheet, or you might be just noting things down and trying to bring it together and get the information you want on a single piece of paper even. What I want to do is really get people to think about how they might be able to use the data that they've really got in front of them if they could see it in a single place. So rather than navigating down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps to get to a combination of, say, GL and AP data, what if we could start to bring that together into a single place? And this just gives you an example here. So if you could bring together, if you could do a search and say, I want to see all the payables invoices that I've posted to this GL account on this date range. That's really difficult in Oracle at the moment, whether you're using a standard report, whether you're trying to do it in Discoverer, which really gets confused when you've got multi-layer data, or whether you're trying to do it through an online inquiry. But it really does bring into play the benefit of the EBS data if you can start to get hold of it in that way and start to use it. So we're going to look at a couple of examples around this and around some of the R12 data. So this one is just would apply equally to 11i or R12. But if we go through, now you've got this opportunity in the GL to really think about how you might want to restructure your chart of accounts to maybe move things, some things out to be in ledgers, or maybe think about taking some detail out and putting it down in the subledger accounting layer and making the most of your chart of accounts hierarchies more. And if you can then report on these and actually see the information, so we can see some summary detail here in a hierarchy, then we can easily expand to drill into more information there. That starts to bring information to life for your end users. Equally, if we want to look at, say, payables or purchasing data where it really is lots of multiple layers of information together, what we want to do is actually bring it together to actually answer business questions. And when it's static information presented to us, we want to be able to answer more by actually then being able to drill down and see the detail that's supporting that information. So here we've got an analysis of the orders, and then we can actually drill into the individual purchase order details, or slice and dice it and see the spend by department. And that's the sort of business question that users are trying to answer. Equally, when you're migrating your data and starting to move it over into R12 from 11i, you might want to do a data cleansing exercise and make sure everything's set up as you want it. So here, for example, you might want to actually make sure that your suppliers have all got the right sort of payment terms before you migrate the data over, or do other checks. And you want that easily presented in a screen and be able to filter it and do some exception highlighting. Here is the SLA layer of data. Now, I've only brought in a little bit of it here, but you can start to see straight away that we've got some ledger information appearing. We can see our invoice and event class of what's been happening with any particular transaction, the transaction details, and over on the right, we can pop up a little screen that shows us more information about that payables invoice. If we've got specially configured attributes in there or a specially configured description at the header or line level, we'd be able to bring that in too and actually see it all on that one screen. And it then becomes much more useful to us. We can report across modules, across ledgers, whatever we want to do with that layer of data that you've now got available to you, and you really, really, really should think about exploiting. And it goes on. So if we want to look at our order management information, if we can present it on a single screen, let's see it and then drill down into the detail of the information that we want to actually answer our questions. If we're interested in HR, we easily want to be able to get at things like what's our absence rates, who's causing us the most absences, and even just be able to analyse our employees before we do our migration. So there's lots of areas where people just want easy access to the information. So we've got those reporting options there, and at the moment people are trying to achieve all of those things through this whole plethora of reporting tools that they've got available, none of which completely do the job, but each one does a bit of it, and that's why people tend to have a dependency on this whole mix of reporting tools. We would suggest that you look at Insight to do a lot more of that and actually make things a lot easier for people to get at one screen with all the information on it for them. When you're moving to R12, do have a think about these different things. So check out what is going to be happening to the reporting tools that you're using at the moment, how they fit with your organisation now, and how they might fit in your new R12 world. Look at the new R12 functionality and the data that you've got available and assess the reporting implications for that, not only for the reports that you know that you want to create now, but that you might want to create knowing that you've got these new areas of data available to you. So I've talked about things like SLA, but there's also the suppliers, there's the new payments manager, collections information in AR. There's lots of areas that you can start to exploit. Identify what your users really need to know. What are they asking themselves today, tomorrow, instantly? And then, of course, decide when you're going to introduce the reporting aspects of the project. Are you going to wait till after the event? Are you going to do it and use it as part of the actual upgrade and migration? Or are you going to do some analysis with some reporting tools up front? But do make sure that you plan for the reconciliation and report building effort that you will have as part of R12. It's a bit of a hidden cost and people don't always put a line in it on the project plan. You must do that if you're going to have a successful project and have some happy, satisfied users at the end of it. If you want next steps, please come and talk to us. In the meantime, here are some customers that we currently work with. A lot of our customers are really using Insight to actually get at that data quickly and easily and turn it on its head to actually make sense of what's available for them in eBusiness Suite at the moment. And that's all from us, I think. There's our details. Please feel free to contact us if you want any more information. And Shannon, are there any key questions that we need to respond to, or shall we take those offline?
I think we're good to take everything offline. So if you guys do have any other questions, just feel free to drop us an email and we'll get back to you. And please check out our website, oracle.insightsoftware.com. Thanks for joining us today, everybody.
Thank you.